Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar today, titled Why Healthcare AI Fails Without the Right Data Foundation. Appreciate everybody taking the time to join us. This is a closed leadership discussion. We kept it that way intentionally rather than opening it up to everybody to attend. We wanted to be more honest and kind of clear, and having this leadership forum kind of allows us to be more honest and talk about real world problems and things that are happening today. So we're not going to focus on products or tools or platforms or try to sell anybody on this webinar today. This is more of a kind of thought leadership and more strategic in nature. My name is Burke Anderson. I am Director of Channel Partnerships with Netsmartz, and joining me here today are three of my colleagues. Parth Gargish, he's EVP of Business Growth. He works closely with healthcare leadership teams, and especially on AI transformation strategies. He's been a speaker in different AI forums, including TED Talk last year. And also with me is Atif Khan, who's AVP and head of AI and machine learning at Netsmartz. So he leads the development and deployment of production AI systems. And Upasna Kalra, manager of data engineering, who focuses on building modern data architectures that enable scalable analytics and AI programs. So thanks for joining today, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us here. Thank you.
So let's get into this. Starting with why this conversation matters now. So, I mean, I think it's kind of obvious that AI is here. It's here to stay. Most people are using AI in their everyday lives. I know I am personally. I use it for, even like personal things like cooking, recipes, tips about my dog, vacations, other things in my like finance. Even it helped me with my taxes just this year. So we're using AI in everyday lives, and we're especially using it in business today. So, with this, boards like leadership boards are asking companies, it's no longer like, what are we doing in AI? It's we are doing AI, and there's a lot of scrutiny involved, especially in healthcare, where there's a lot of digital platforms, there's a lot of data sources, and there's a lot of compliance, like HIPAA compliance, things like that need to be considered today. So healthcare data environments are still, they're one of the most fragmented in any industry. You have your electronic health records, imaging systems, billing platforms, operational databases, and often they operate independently. So before we go too much further, I just want to set expectations real quick. We kind of talked about this, but we're not going to try to sell you. Everybody that's on this panel or has been invited to join this, they understand the strategic importance of AI. And this, like I mentioned, this focuses on practical leadership insight. So we're not again, we're not going to try to sell you. This conversation is going to be outcome focused. We're not here to compare technologies or debate vendors. And I just wanted to make sure that was super clear before we carry on here. So let's get into it. The healthcare AI failure pattern. Before discussing solutions, it helps to understand the pattern we see repeatedly across healthcare organizations. Most AI initiatives follow a similar journey. The first stage is experimentation. Data science teams build models using limited data sets. Early pilots often produce promising results. And then the next stage is expansion. Leadership teams want to scale the model across departments or operational workflows. And then this is where the friction often begins. Again, data lives across disconnected systems. Governance frameworks are incomplete. and data quality issues surface. I'm sure Vipassana will be able to talk a lot about that in just a moment here. Where things get stagnant and AI remains stuck, pilots don't get to that production into kind of that next stage. So let me involve some of our panelists to kind of jump in here. So Parth, you work closely with healthcare leadership teams, navigating these transformation programs. You have for years now. From your perspective, where do organizations typically encounter the biggest barriers when attempting to scale their AI internally, especially in healthcare?
Yeah, thanks, Burke. Thanks for giving that brief rundown. I think that will help the audience to understand the perspective of this webinar. So yeah, to your question, I think most of the organizations in times today, they struggle a lot, with the factor that they go with the wrong approach, especially when it comes to healthcare organization, because everyone is trying to get ahead in the race of AI. Everyone wants to implement AI in their organizations in one form or the other, right? And they want to get ahead of the curve. But what is important is that I always say this, that AI thrives on data. Your AI implementation is going to give you better output if your data environment is structured in the right way, right? So if you talk about healthcare data, most of the organizations, whether you talk SaaS platforms or core healthcare organizations, their data is kind of distributed across clinical, financial, and operation systems. And these 3 or 4 different areas are never.
Parth, sorry to interrupt you, but I'm getting a lot of feedback. I don't know if anybody else is. If you're not speaking, maybe we could just mute. Sorry about that. I just want to make sure the recording comes through.
So I think, what I was getting onto was that, all these different departments functions, whether you talk about clinical data, whether you talk about financial data, or you talk about, operational systems, all these different, areas of business functions are designed to work, individually. They were never designed to work together, right? And without a structured data architecture, the organization struggle is how to make that data usable when it comes to overall AI implementation, and getting better ROIs from overall implementation of different AI use cases. I mean, it could be involved in customer support, it could be involved in clinical trials, or maybe forecasting or predictive analytics, you name it, right? That is why successful organizations, they need to move, or they eventually move their focus towards strengthening their data foundation before they get into AI initiatives. And that is why it is very important that your data foundation layer is strong, because that is going to lay the overall foundation for your overall business, and for your overall business multiple use cases too, right? So that is why it's very important that your data is in a structured format.
Yeah, absolutely, totally agree. And I think it's kind of funny because when I talk to people around about data and databases and kind of the data layer or layers, it's kind of a boring topic, right? It's boring. It's not super sexy, but actually it's the most exciting and most interesting part of any software platform, any AI platform, anything that people interface with. The data is what makes this all happen. And based on how, it's organized and structured, is going to determine the way your AI or your SaaS or whatever your front-facing platform is actually doing and how well it's executing. So when you look at it that way, the data side of things becomes very interesting and very sexy, if you will. So Vipassana, I'm sure you'd be excited to talk more about that. But let's jump to this next slide. So yeah, let's talk about the fragmentation of data, especially when it comes to healthcare data. Parth and I were working with a customer recently, and they had data all over the place, different disparate systems, and none of them were communicating very well with each other. And it made a big challenge for the AI initiative we were trying to execute, they're working on executing with them. But it was just interesting to hear how all this data was all over the place. Is this something you see often, Upasna? Throw it to you.
Yes, Bugs. So basically, the healthcare data like clinical system, billing, images, it is often, it is distributed across the many systems and formats. So this data is fragmented and it often, operates in silos. Means like the data is not talking, the different systems are not talking. So now, because of these modern data platforms such as Fabric, it allows the organizations to bring all this data together into a single platform. So when the organization they establishes such a unified ecosystem wherein we are able to integrate data engineering, ML, and BI everything into a single platform, into a single umbrella, they achieve a better visibility into data quality, lineage, and governance. And this foundation, it is really critical for any scalable AI initiatives. So better the data is, better and more robust and scalable the AI models would be.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And then there's some other challenges where, leaders are getting it wrong right now as well. Interoperability challenges, especially when it comes to legacy healthcare systems. Very resistant to a lot of the, current tools and software platforms and AI platforms when they're on that legacy system. Then there's the governance issues as well. Paying attention to governance early on is critical, and a lot of times it's an afterthought, and then it's too late, right? And then the unified platforms as well. Um, Parth or Atif, any thoughts on these issues that leaders are where they're getting it wrong today? I guess we'll say. Dude, we could just jump to the next part. So we can talk about what's working, if that's better, right? So I think we already talked about some of the challenges, uh, but what's actually working today? Any
Yeah,
thoughts, guys? Go
yeah.
ahead, Parth.
So I think what's not working and what will work is, uh, let's talk about what's not working. What's not working is, jumping right into your AI journey. If you're still, if you're still new, or you're a premature, organization who is trying to figure out that what would actually would work for you and what exactly will not work for you, don't jump ahead of the curve, right? I mean, it's very important that you do some assessments, internally, and then maybe involve an external partner if in case you feel that you do not have the in-house expertise. And then maybe there are so many organizations, out there who can train your core team on how to, step up in terms of your AI first journey. And it's very important that you evaluate first that how are you structured in terms of your data, right? I mean, maybe as an organization, like Upasna was mentioning, that your data is present in silos. Maybe, it's all over the place, and you start building an AI wrapper around, data which is so much distributed across different ecosystems that it becomes difficult to form any meaningful information out of it, right? So you invest a lot of time in terms of developing something and building an AI wrapper around it, but then at the end of the day, what does not work for businesses and where actually you see, a lot of issues is that, businesses have spent 1 year or 2 years in terms of building something around AI, but they're not able to get measurable ROIs because they didn't do it in the right way. They didn't do an initial assessment in terms of how their data should have been, to form anything meaningful which can generate some return on investments, right? So that will definitely not work. What will work, or what is working, is that maybe you start taking baby steps. Maybe, I mean, have a assessment done first, and then see that, okay, how you can build on that, and then identify some, some low hanging fruits and easy wins, right? And start implementing that. Maybe the first step could be as simple as, doing a data assessment and, seeing that what can you do, with respect to structuring your data first, right? And then form, then invest time into AI implementations. right? And it could start with a small use case. It could be, a large use case, which might take, a couple of weeks or months. But, figure out that where exactly you are right now as an organization, and then figure out where you want to be in maybe next 5 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years down the line, right? So make small goals, but realistic goals, and then work towards it, so that you have some goals to define what are you going to achieve as a business in terms of ROIs. I think that really works in stride to your organization. But I'll let Atif answer, or maybe add on anything from his thoughts.
So thank you, Parth. I guess you've very well, articulated, that the data is something which is very critical, and the fundamental should be, very much, clear when we talk about taking this, thing from a journey of data gathering to, creating a model of AI model. Now, before directly, getting into that, what is actually working right now, I would just like to take a step back and focus on when we talk about healthcare industry, right? Healthcare industry has three major, pillars when we talk about the data engineering part. So one is your integrity, second is your authenticity, and third is your reliability. So when we do a subset of these three major stuff, then we understand that okay, fine, how critical our data is. Now, when we talk about the criticality of the data, there are two different sectors into it. One is your PII data, and second is your non-PII data. Now, once we are able to identify these kind of categories, then we go forward when we focus on creating a reliable data engineering pipeline and focusing on a secured environment. Now, as we see into the market that we have some bigger players like Microsoft Azure, we have AWS, GCP. Now, right now Oracle OCI is coming into the picture in order to support on the PII and non-PII data engineering pipelines. So Azure machine learning allow teams to train and deploy models within government infrastructure. Then we have certain, when I was talking about the the integrity of the data and authenticity of the data, that's where your information security comes into the picture, where we focus on services like Microsoft Defender, which helps monitor threats and protect sensitive healthcare data across cloud environments. So when data platforms and AI infrastructure and security frameworks are aligned, so definitely the organizations gain confidence to move AI initiatives to that production level.
That's great insight. Yeah, thank you so much for that. I just want to go back real quick to one point around the embedded governance. Prasna, maybe you can talk about this a little bit. How critical is governance in all of this?
When we talk about governance, so like we already discussed that these modern data platforms, it allows us to, govern the data. We have the policies and, all the governance setup within the fabric, within the same tool itself. So we need not, go with the other tool for the data governance purposes. So the modern data architecture, it allows the governance layer within the same platforms. So it becomes easier for us to have the reliable data and I mean all the governance layer would be within the same platform, same single ecosystem.
Thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about operating models that scale. I think we kind of touched on this a little bit already. Well, let's talk about cross-functional teams and why it's important that data, AI, and especially when it comes to healthcare, clinical operational teams and expertise work together. I often find that like when I'm working with different organizations and we're talking about implementing something into their organization, whether it be AI or we're helping them with some sort of staff log on their software platform or whatnot, sometimes we end up talking to different groups, almost like they're on different teams. Like we have to have one call with the operations people, then we have to go to call the data people, and then we have to go talk, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's super critical from my perspective to get everyone on the same page. And especially when you're talking about, you know, data, AI, clinicians, operational folks. Parth, I know you've experienced that as well, being a, you know, kind of business development leader for over a decade and probably closer to a couple decades. Why is it important to have these cross-functional delivery teams on the same page?
Well, before we even get there, Burke, I mean, I would like to kind of, you know, take one step back here, you know, because that is what I always, you know, talk when I'm delivering keynotes and everything. And maybe, you know, it's an interesting question for this panel also. So, I mean, if I may ask, you know, Atif, I mean, if you want to train your child to become a soccer player, for example, right? I mean, what would you do? Like, what would be your first step? What would you want to do?
So definitely, I mean, you know, from the day one, you know, I will try to, you know, make sure that. So I would like to go back again. You know, I mean, there's a thing called, you know, take baby steps, right?
Yeah,
Uh, you cannot just, you know, overfeed or you know, overexpose your child that, you know, from day one that you're gonna become the best, you know, soccer player in the world, right? So you need to take baby steps, you know, to start, you know, give a bit of training, you know, then kind of a, you know, mentoring support, and maybe as gradually the days, you know, passes by, and you know, the child is getting mature and getting a physical strength. That's how you decide, you know, whether the child will be able to be a you know, a soccer player or not.
exactly.
Are you
So
talking about building a foundation here? Is that?
yeah, so I'll tell you what I'm getting to. So, you know, when you want your child to become a soccer player, the first thing or the best thing what you can do to him is find a coach, you know, who has
Sure.
been there, done it, who has created multiple players in the past, and who knows the pathway, who has the experience to do that, right? In today's times, the biggest problem with chat gpt and all these tools out there, you know, becoming a household name, is that most of the organizations, they tend to do everything themselves, and then that is where they lose time. They try to, you know, build an in-house expertise, which is not wrong. I mean, which is significantly fine if you feel that you have the luxury of time to do that, because at this point in time where we are in the age we are in, right, I mean, everyone wants to get ahead of the curve, otherwise your competitors would, right? So, I mean, you need to decide as a group, as a leadership group, that what do you want to do? I mean, do you want to get ahead of the curve, or do you have that luxury of time to, you know, experiment and build things? I mean, the reason why I took that narrative of a soccer, you know, player kind of a concept is that, I mean, you would never say that, hey, you know, hey son, you know, do this, that, you know, open up a YouTube channel, and then, you know, find a coach there, and, you know, he has 60 videos there, he'll train you, and then eventually you'll be playing and representing your country. That's never going to happen. You need someone to kind of mentor and get things going from ground, and then build that mindset for your child to kind of understand that, okay, this is the journey I have to live through. In next 10 years I have to get here, right? And that only comes with experience. So, I mean, yes, I'm not against vibe coding and everything. Please do that. I mean, of course, everyone wants to get familiar with that. But if you want to get, you know, ahead of the curve as a business, you want to substantially, you know, get in the AI ecosystem in next 5 months or 6 months, you would need an expert for that. You would need someone to help you, who has been there, done it, who knows that how you can get from point A to point B, and then eventually, you know, hold you or maybe handhold you from point A to point B, and then lets you be, right? I mean, then okay, now improve here, and wherever you need my support, I'll come back as a coach if you need my support, or otherwise I'll groom you so that you can build on from there. Right now, that depends on the muscle of the organization, how much they can carry their own weight, or they want an external partner to kind of help them throughout. That is different for every organization. But what I'm trying to get to is that cross-functional delivery teams are so important, and you cannot do that right from day one, unless, you know, you have already have a fairly large ecosystem established as an AI and a data engineering, you know, group, which many organizations would not have, because the core business is healthcare. The core business is not technology, right? So you would need a combination of AI engineers, you would need a combination of data engineers, you would need a combination of solution architects, and those who have expertise in your ecosystem. You know what I mean? So 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 it's very important that you have the right mentoring, you have the right team stitched up, you do this as early as possible, because I mean, in next 6 months or 7 months, many organizations who are not on their AI journey will actually vanish. I mean, that's the new norm, that's the way you got to function, right?
Yeah.
And everything, and none of us can do everything ourselves, right? I mean, you need good partners, you need good team members to come in and join you on that journey, and that is why this step is so important. That I mean, these are the operating models that would substantially scale. I hope that gives some perspective to the conversation here.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's great, Parth. Thank you for sharing that. I also am thinking about what we're talking about earlier with building a foundation, right? You can't just jump in and do this if you have no expertise or no background or no practice. If you think about any sports, like, practice is critical. Training, going to the gym, practicing, doing the reps, so that when it comes to game time, you have that foundation and you're ready to execute. And then just doubling down on the sports analogy, whether it's soccer or basketball or anything else, if you're not playing as a full team, let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks this year. How about that? I'm a huge Seahawks fan. That's my favorite NFL team. They had a complete team this year. There was no selfish superstars that were taking all the credit. Everybody played their positions well. They had a complete team approach, different contributors. I mean, different people would come in and they'd be able to catch or score or play defense. You had tight ends blocking. Everybody was playing their role with the same outcome, with the same goal as their focus. And I guarantee they had experts come in on practice times and from outside of the organization and give them coaching and consultations and things of that nature to get them where they needed to be. So just like, there's companies out there that can help support and provide expertise and get everybody on the same page. Okay, so let's so here we kind of built this placeholder here to pause and let anybody who's watching this recording, who wants to come in and come off mute and ask any questions, or think about these points here. Where do things slow in your organization? What AI initiatives are stuck right now at your own organization, if you have any of those that are stuck? And where does governance create friction? Any of these topics, feel free to come in. I don't know if there's any questions out there, but we'll just pause for a moment there before we carry on. And we'll also, at the very end, we'll look at any of the questions here. And if we don't answer them today as part of this presentation, we'll get back with you directly. All right. Thank you for all the great insights so far, guys. So let's talk about what good looks like. So obviously, good is going to consist of faster AI deployment cycles, reduced data friction, transparent governance, secure innovation at scale. So let's talk about, let's dive into any of these points. Atif or Upasana, either one, what kind of stands out to you on any of these, on what good looks like?
So when we talk about faster AI deployment cycle, we need to first understand how well our architecture has been designed, right? What I see with my experience, that people tend to focus more on AI models, but they forget the how scalable the architecture is. Okay, so in order to have this faster deployment cycle, we need to have a right architecture in place. When we have the right architecture in place, when I'm talking about the solution architecture, we're not just talking about the data part, talking about the services which will be into that particular system, the network layer, the infra part, how well the infra is designed to take care of all the services which might be running 100 services running at that particular time or 1,000 services running at that particular time, right? So if you're able to build a safe, trusted, scalable architecture, then I guess deployment can be done in like a skyrocket. So yeah.
No, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. One thing that's standing out to me right now is the governance aspect of things, especially when it comes to patient data. And I keep hearing that as I talk to different people in the healthcare space is, HIPAA compliance, patient data, this is all critical, and we need to ensure that, whatever we develop here has the right governance in place. So,
So I would like to give 2 cents here on this. That
yeah, please.
so when we talk about this, these kind of frameworks, HIPAA frameworks, then data sharing, data authorization and authentication frameworks. I mean, there's something which is very important, which has to be followed in almost in all the AI related implementations which are going on, irrespective whether it is classical machine learning or agentic AI developments. Right now, majority of the organizations, the enterprise level applications which have been developed by bigger organizations are focusing on to deploying guardrail agents. So before guardrail agents, we were just putting a simple script of guardrails. What to show, what not to show, what should be the filtered way of certain data sets, right? Now these guardrail agents are actually getting deployed, on top of the product, and very clearly, they are able to understand that whether this particular data set is a PII or a non-PII data set, and it automatically gets those things blocked into the system, and only the information which is publicly